After high school, I went to the University of Wisconsin, and I became expert at distinguishing among the various Wisconsin beers, and my parents did not think that that would lead to a productive career, so they encouraged me, if that's the right word, to join the Army, so I enlisted, and that was the beginning of my life, actually. I think my year as an enlisted person made me grow. It made me know that I had to stand up on my own 2 feet, but it wasn't until West Point that really my life was changed. Yes, I had earned the rank of PFC by being first in my class at Fort Devens. That was an accomplishment. Yes, sir. I was a PFC. So I strutted up. I reported to the man in the red sash, the cadet in the red sash, and he had me take off my PFC stripe. Wow. That was agonizing. I'd worked for that. That was whatever.
Yes, sir.
We would rehearse very frequently in the sinks that was down in where the showers were in Central area. And we became pretty good, very enjoyable, and it gave me an understanding of stage presence. For example, we sang at the New York Athletic Club, which is a pretty exclusive club in the city. And to get up in front of that audience, which is very sophisticated, and announce songs and tell a joke or something, made me grow in self-confidence in my ability to act, perhaps, or to express myself in public. So that was a very helpful part of my life. We were in East Gym at a hop, and I was at the head of the table. I had all my company mates and their dates, and to my left was my date, and to my right was my future wife. And my future wife and I started conversing, and I thought she was pretty cool. And then afterwards, we went to the Boodlers at what was then the Boodlers at the Hotel Thayer, and we got to talking again. And so I thought she was pretty neat, beautiful too. So the next day, I called over to her home, and I asked her for a date, and she, as it turned out, cut class to meet me in Grant Hall at the Boodlers. And so I met her in October. We were pinned in November, engaged in December, and married in July. When I was a plebe, Company G1 had won the drill streamer. That's the way they were best in the Corps with the drill, with marching and all that kind of business. But we hadn't won it since. And I thought, I sort of set that as my goal as company commander. And that year we won the drill streamer.
Yes, sir.
I was so dadgum proud of that because we had done it together. Come to West Point, you see men. Why? Because our weapon is a squad. And so what you see then are heroes here, men, and so they should be our inspiration for how the Army is led. If in the Navy, the captain of the ship says full right rudder, ain't nobody going to jump off the ship. But in the Army, in the infantry, if you say follow me, you better not have to look around and see if there's anybody there. So it's a whole different concept, in my view, of leadership. So that's why I chose infantry. When I was a second lieutenant platoon leader, we were on what was then called an Army training test in Germany. And during that test, we had a number of obstacles that we had to overcome, and that we faced missions. And this one time we had an attack. That was our priority. Our mission was to attack this piece of terrain. So I took my squad leaders up to this promontory overlooking a valley, and my objective, and I said, sergeants, our objective's over there. And I proceeded to go through the 5-paragraph field order. Well, about 2 minutes less than that, Sergeant Billy Thompson said, "Hey, sir, our objective's over here." And, he was right. But to this day, I don't know what qualities I had manifested that caused Sergeant Thompson to have the confidence that he could correct me. Mm-hmm. A dumbass, Ranger qualified lieutenant that he could correct. So I don't know what qualities I had, but he did it. I've never forgotten that how important it is to create a climate so that your subordinates will correct you when they think you're wrong or when they think they have a better idea. I reported to the company commander, said, "Sir, Lieutenant Boylan reports." "Sit down, Boylan." And after we exchanged pleasantries, he began to say, "Boylan, I want you to read FM 101-5, I want you to read 25-2, I want you to read the company SOP, the battle group SOP, and about the fifth or sixth thing." I said, "Sir, would you excuse me because I've run out of spec?" So I swear I saw that son of a gun smirk as I ran out and asked the first sergeant, "May I have a pencil and paper?" First sergeant growled, "Do I look like the supply sergeant?" "No, first sergeant." So dumbass Boylan trots down to my platoon CP, and I get a pencil and paper. I come back, the first sergeant's roaring his ass off, and I report to the company commander, and that was a lifelong lesson. Always carry a pencil and paper, and to this day, I've got a pencil and paper. We went to Fort Knox, to the Armor Career Course, and that was the subject of conversation. There were about 20 of my classmates, infantry classmates, that were at Fort Knox. And we were all going to Vietnam, and so we all talked about combat leadership. It's sort of interesting because one of my classmates, who was a star man, 5% academically, great leader, fine athlete, in our discussions about leadership always said that the only time you had to be good was when someone was looking at you. And I couldn't have disagreed with that more. You always have to be good. Someone's looking at you, whether or not you realize it. God's looking at you, you're looking at yourself, whatever. Someone's always looking at you. And moreover, doing well is a habit. Mm-hmm. You can't afford not to do well if you're going to build these things in yourself. Well, I was daunted a little bit because of all my contemporaries were far more experienced than I in airborne operations. So my first operation was a month or two into command. I took over a battalion that failed everything. The first operation was a jump into Eglin Air Force Base in the Everglades. And so we jumped in, and the policy in the 82nd was, at the time, was when you went in, you would take in at least a ton of concertina. And you put that on your trailer, and of course, then you use this concertina to protect your battalion command post. Well, with a ton of concertina, I mean, the guy's still within hand grenade range. So why are you taking this? Why not taking in, from my combat experience, I want as many bullets as I can have, and I need food, water, bullets. I don't need concertina. So it was stupid. Mm-hmm. So I didn't take it in. Well, we landed and and pretty soon the assistant division commander, General John Forrest, shows up, and he chews my ass for half an hour for not having a concertina. I'm lucky. My ass is a lot smaller today. I wonder what happened. I know. Anyway, I was pissed about it. So after the operation, I went to ask for audience with the division commander. He said, "Come on in, Boylan, I've been expecting you," which I didn't think was a very good start. But anyway, I told him the same story I just said. He sat and thought for a moment. He said, "You're right." So we changed the policy. And again, that comes from Billy Thompson. In Vietnam, in Forrest Gump, you see Tom Hanks under fire, running through the jungle with his hand on his helmet, because the helmet's not buckled, and his rifle in his other hand. Now, how dumb is that? I mean, hang on to your helmet for crying out loud? Are people shooting at you? I mean, no. So in the 82nd at the time, you had to be cool. And so you never buckled your helmet. Well, I changed that in my unit. And of course, I got all sorts of IG complaints. My sergeant said, I'm going to ruin the morale of the battalion, of the brigade at that time. And so pretty soon I got a call from the division commander, at that time Jim Lindsay. And he said, what are you doing? I said, well, I told him the same story I just told you about Tom Hanks. And they're right. So he changed the division policy. Again, Billy Thompson. So I just think that, and this is what I've tried to convey to my subordinates always, it's okay to challenge because things will be better. And, your boss might kick your ass for doing it, but at least you'll have performed your duty. And duty is a part of character, and character is what wins battles. I felt very strongly about the necessity of teaching cadets leadership, character leadership. And so I spent a lot of time every day. I would go into the barracks at mid-period with the ostensible purpose of inspecting a room, but that wasn't my purpose. My purpose was to go to a room, casually look at it, and start talking about leadership, and pretty soon the room would be filled with about 30 cadets, and we'd spend an hour talking about leadership. In my view, you had to make the football team feel like they were part of a larger part of this academy. They were representing the academy, and not only representing the academy, but all of their classmates and all the cadets. So what I did was to say, okay, company commanders, after intramurals down at Soldiers Field or wherever you are, you take your company up to Mikey Stadium and you watch football practice, and I'll give you some reward. Mm-hmm. So every day I had people viewing the football team in one way, shape, or form. And we started winning. For the first time in history, we got invited to a bowl in Michigan at the Silverdome. And we beat Michigan State, which was, it's pretty cool. One day I got a call. Actually, Kathy, my wife, had got a call from Georgia Military College. I took the job. I took a 90% pay cut and was the president of the college for 21 years. And the reason I took the job was because when I was interviewed by all these people who believed in this place. And this college was nothing. But when I was interviewed, here were these guys, and the chairman of the board asked them, to ask me questions, and the first 2 or 3 had no questions. And then it got around to the chairman, and he said, well, General, I understand you were in the 82nd. I said, yes, sir, I was. I spent 8 years there and about 200 parachute jumps and da-da-da-da-da. He said, well, I was in the 82nd in World War II and Battle of the Bulge. Bingo! That was the end of the interview. Leadership requires virtues of all sorts. And so we changed that around. And around the campus, I hung little pennants of duty, honor, country, and character above all. And every morning at formation, the cadets required to echo that. The idea of duty, honor, country, for me, was the way to instill virtue, character, if you will. By the way, Sergeant Billy Thompson was killed in Vietnam and is in Arlington National Cemetery with a silver star next to his Purple Heart.
Yes, sir.
So I think all my life, I remembered him and what he taught me. And I've tried to, in many ways, carry that idea into my subordinates. So Thompson still lives in many ways.